I know you love a bit of Splattermania, but what are your top 3 non-horror films? Oh, there's loads of them. The one that I recommend to more people than any other movie is a film called As Good As It Gets, because someone recommended it to me when I was going through a really bad spell, and it worked. It cheered me up, so I automatically recommend that one. Jack Nicholson's in it, and it is just a fantastic movie, As Good As It Gets. Non-horror films, top 3. Again, how can you name 3? I'm a film fanatic, not just horror films. If an alien landed and I could give him 3 films to watch, I'd give him that and Rocky Horror Picture Show and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. There you go. But I want Grease to be in there as well. There's loads of great non-horror films. But yeah, I'll pick them 3 because they're quite polar. Favourite tattoo and why? I haven't got a favourite tattoo. I don't think I've got a favourite tattoo anyway. I don't even look at them. Some people get tattoos to show off. I get tattoos for the same reason as I write songs, to kind of signify something, to nail something down to a place in time. And I don't, spend a lot of time looking at my arms and stuff. So I wouldn't know my favourite tattoo. The Motorhead one, probably, that one, because it's fucking huge. And I got it in memory of Lemmy. So when I got it, I started it the day of his funeral, actually. I had the outline done the day of his funeral. That was fun. And then I came back here and I had the rest of it filled in by a fella in Wales. But apart from that, a lot of people are saying, can you do things about your art collection, your record collection, your bits and pieces, and stuff like that. I should probably do one about my tattoos, because there's some great stories in my tattoos. Yeah, there's a lot of stories on this skin. A lot of stories. Every single one of them. Bizarre parts of my life. Look at it all. What a mess. What am I see these people with really nice, neat sleeves, and they're like, early 20s. I'm like, okay, well, yours look nicer, but I bet mine have got better stories than yours. Lyric you wish you'd written. I always say My Old Friend the Blues by Steve Earle, because it is just the most beautiful song about misery I've ever heard. And he talks about misery being like a friend who comes and visits him, but it's not forever. And that friend's going to go. And, you're familiar. And when this unhappiness descends upon you, you're like, oh, it's you again. Not like, oh my God, what's going on? It is quite familiar, and I look at my depression like that, not that it's, a friend that I like to invite over too much, but I do realise now that it's temporary. And there's a great song on the next album called Just Make It to Bedtime that is about that. I just realised that, all I got to do is make it to the end of the day, whatever time of day the end of the day is. So that's my favourite lyric, is My Old Friend the Blues. Just when every ray of hope was gone, I should have known that you would come along. I know I can always count on you, my old friend the blues. Doesn't get better than that. Favourite album cover of mine? Favourite album cover? 555, because it was David Bowie's artist, who, incidentally, in keeping with the early 70s theme and Sweet, was Terry Pastor. And he designed the Sweet album covers, A Cut Above the Rest. Level Headed was the black and white one with Love It Like Oxygen. But he designed the one with the stylus, Cut Above the Rest, and it's just all this weird kind of 70s sci-fi pop art. Oh, I loved it. And I wanted something like that for the 555 album. And obviously, there's, not a great budget there. And so I thought, I'm going to check if he's alive. Again, great things that the internet's for. And he was alive, and I went, could you put me in touch with any artists that you know or any students of yours that can do something in a similar style to you? Because I really love your style, and never in a million years, I wasn't even expecting him to go, I'll do it. To which I went, I think we're probably a bit below your budget, Terry, but thank you very much. Got any more ideas? And he went, what's your budget? It's this much. I'll do it. And he designed that beautiful, beautiful cassette with the blood coming out as tape and the razor blade inside. I just still don't like signing the front of that record. Anyone gives me that record to sign, And I'm like, can I sign it on the inside? I just don't want to write over that. Beautiful. I love that album cover. But I do like the bunny, the headless bunny that was on excess gas or something. And for the T-shirt, he did the back of the bunny's head, and that was great. I love that cover. Favorite venue to play? I'm going to say UK here, and KK's Steel Mill. Because every time we go there, they give Maggie her own dressing room with a bed and a snacks, and they're just great in there. And it's a lovely big stage, and it's always full of people, but it's one of them gigs where it's always a great gig, always a great crowd. Love the Midlands, love Tice and the guys that run that place, and Maggie loves it as well because she gets her own boudoir. Which artist would people possibly be surprised you're a fan of? At this point, I don't think anyone would be surprised by anything I'm a fan of. I like everything from Mersbo to Taylor Swift. I like Taylor Swift. I like everything. I find people don't like bands that I love, and I'm not aware that they don't like them. I gather people don't like Chumbawamba, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Great tunes played by an awesome band who've got a great sound and tons of harmonies. What's to fucking hate about that? But as far as artists that I think people would be surprised, I can't think of any. I don't think people are surprised by my taste anymore. I like everything, literally everything. Best live act you've seen? Oh, that's hard because there's been Rammstein. Obviously, is hard to beat. Kiss, when I first saw Kiss in 1980, that was pretty hard to beat. That was amazing. But Trailer Dead, I saw Trailer Dead in New York when they had the two drummers, and that was just mind blown. But I saw Guitar Wolf play a festival where everybody who had loads of instruments and loads of band members all sounded terrible, and they went on with 3 people in this open air festival and just sounded like an earthquake going off. And I ran to the dressing room and I was like, everyone, you got to come to see this band. That was a mind-altering experience. But then, speaking of mind-altering experience, I've been to Prodigy gigs out my box, and that sent me somewhere else. So no best live act, because there's tons of them. Al asks, my question is, which band or artist, living or no longer with us, would you love to have played a song with on stage? Top 3 if you're struggling to choose. I don't want to be on stage with anyone now. I'm not sure it even really bothered me that much being on stage with someone else. I was never really into one of those, like, can I get up and play a song? Never, not me. But, if someone says, will you get up and play a song? Obviously, yeah. But I had a thing back when I was a crackhead. I used to fantasize about being on stage with Skunk Anansie playing the song Hedonism. Not a huge Skunk Anansie fan. I think they're great. She's great, but, not a band that I listen to a lot. But I fucking adored this song. And I just saw myself playing rhythm guitar and singing a lower harmony, which is not on the record. And that was my crack fantasy more than a few dozen times. Now if they asked me to do it, I'd be like, well, I'll check my diary. I had a dream once that I was on stage with Guns N' Roses. And from then I had this odd thing about wanting to be on stage with Guns N' Roses back in the day. But I had a dream I was on stage with Guns N' Roses. And the reason why it stuck with me is because I could smell them. I could smell the body odour on stage. And it was weird. I could smell the sweat. Ever so weird. And so I'll put that in, even though I'm sure that I'll never get on stage with Guns N' Roses, nor would I really care. I'd like to play with them, but, on the same bill. The one I would have said, who would you get on stage with any band? Probably Jason and the Scorchers, because they changed the world for me. And I did. I got to be Jason for a tour. I got to be the front person with Ginger and the Scorchers, where I got to pick my favourite set list. So I think that would be and was my fantasy of getting up on stage with anyone. Al. Joe Thomas says, your kids are all talented musicians in their own right, and Jasmine's stuff is amazing. Have they ever appeared on your recordings, or have you ever been involved in theirs? Well, I don't want to get involved in theirs, to be honest. I've always supported my kids in everything they want to do, but the thing I love most about when my kids make music is they don't ask me to get involved, and I fucking really like that. I like to see and hear the distilled version of them a million miles away from whatever I am. So I haven't, nor do I want to be on their records. But They have been on mine. They've all been on mine, actually. Jasmine was on Margaret Harbour. You and me, that's what I want. That was Jasmine messing around, and we recorded it and made a little song around it. That was really cool. And Jake, my eldest, he was on the same album singing In My Room by the Beach Boys, obviously. Because me and him used to sing that song together. So I said, would you sing that song? And he went, yeah, whatever. And then when the album came out, he was pissed off because he wanted to have a more upbeat song like Jasmine's. But he got the 3-part harmony song, which I think he did well out of that. And Taylor's been on my records. And the first time he was ever on my records, he was about, 4, maybe 5. And it was Toxins and Tea. And it was the line about Russell Brand being a wanker, which at the time wasn't really said. What's the problem with Russell Brand? I think he's great. Now I think a few more people think he's a wanker than they did back then. But I always had a sneaking suspicion there was fucking a rat in the kitchen with that one. But Taylor got to come down in full view of his mum and shout, wanker, which he loved and I loved. So yeah, that was they've all been on my records. Fraser Kent 667. Great album. Had my first proper listen this morning. Just wondered, when you go to a studio with too many songs for an album, how do you decide what stays and what's discarded? I tend to not write that much. I don't want to write tons and tons of songs. I don't trust when people go, we had 40 songs when we went in the studio, and then you hear the album and it's shit. Like, I finish my songs off. So I don't want to write too many songs that I really like that aren't going to go on the album. And you've only got a certain amount of time on the album. So I tend to write what I want to put on the album. And if I do end up with a few more, I leave it to an adjudicator, which is historically been usually Rich from the band. And this time it's Dante from our record label. And they tell me what songs I like and what songs, aren't so good. And I'm happy with that. But I don't want to write a load of songs I like and then them be put in the bin. So I don't tend to write too much for albums. I write just enough. Not a spicy question at all. Spicy. I think someone asked for spicy questions and everyone thought sexy questions. Don't send me sexy questions. But Andrew H asks, why did you name Maggie Maggie? Oh, she's just walking up there. Hey, Mush. All right? Maggie. I named Maggie Maggie because of a few reasons. She's black and white, as are Newcastle, the Magpies. But I also named her after Maggie from Love and Rockets, which is a comic book, a graphic novel kind of thing, featuring two girls called Hopi and Maggie. And I just loved these girls when I was younger. I really, really felt like I was going to meet them one day, even though they don't exist. But Maggie, I just fell in love with Maggie, the character. And I just thought, black and white, and Maggie seemed like a nice name based on the Love and Rockets character. Got time for one more, and the final question, which is from Says, are there any of your lyrics that you feel are outdated in the current times, and or you wish you hadn't written? Yes. And that's going to happen, and thank God it happens. But times change. There's certain things you can say at a certain time that you can't say, and justifiably so. And there's been certain things that I've said in songs that I've just really not been aggressive or anything like that. I once said, this is going to sound weird coming out my mouth because it's a word no one's able to say now, but I once had a lyric that said, white of my skin, there's an inside. And I'll just explain what the fuck that means. Ever since I was a kid, I did crossword puzzles, and when it said something inside, it would be an anagram of a word or a word inside of a word. An anagram of ginger, there's only one anagram of ginger, and presumably one anagram of the N-word. And I just thought, well, that's a crossword kind of line, and put it down there. And it wasn't really a bad word in 1991. or whatever. It wasn't, hip hop hadn't even really taken off by that point. So yeah, it was one of those things where it didn't mean anything bad about it. I was me trying to be cryptic. But man, that's just not a word. That's not a line I can sing. And there's another line in Love Shit. If you ain't holding hands, people say that you're queer. And I thought that was a great line because I didn't care if people said I was queer. It was just literally, that's what happens in South Shields. If you're by yourself, people say you're gay. And I was like, I'm fine with that, And then it was just queer is just, I know gay people who use the word queer, not just talk about queer people. It's just, it's a thing. Anyway, the words changed a lot since then. And there's no innocence behind it. If you say a word like that or a word like the N word, you know what you're getting involved in. You know what it means. It's a bit like Cooler Shaker when they were using the swastika, but backwards because it was the Indian sign for peace. But they know that it doesn't mean the Indian sign for peace anymore. And now, obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, I can see that there's a lot of lyrics that I've written that really angry. And I'm not angry about that subject anymore or that person anymore. And, I've been very vitriolic in the past about people and, made up with them since. And it is just a song and people write nasty songs about me. And I'm like, it's just a song. As long as it's got a nice tune, I don't care what you say about me. But yeah. As you develop in your view of the world, a lot of the things that you used to think were acceptable are not because of the way that they affect other people. And I'm a lot more aware of how my music can affect other people and what people expect from me. I don't think people expect me to just be pissed off for nothing. Or a lot of the things that I used to write was just like, I'm angry, what you got for me to be angry about? Rebel without a cause. But yeah, I think there's lyrics I'm writing now that I'm really, really happy with, that I think I'll look back at and go, a bit naive there. And there's some lovely lyrics that I look back and go like, you haven't got a fucking clue back then, had you? But you meant well. So yeah, the whole thing about lyrics is you're nailing that song to a part of to a piece of time, because I don't believe that time is linear. You're nailing that song to something that doesn't even exist anymore. It was an experience that has some kind of metaphysical form. But yeah, I always hope to learn. I always hope to be embarrassed by my past lyrics and to be a little bit cringe when I read some of them, because I want to keep learning and keep getting better as a human being and as a writer. But yeah, I can't believe I talked about the N-word line. First time I've ever spoke about that. And I just remember going like, yeah, but I don't care because that's not what I meant. And now obviously I can see that I didn't know any better. Anyway, with my heart on my sleeve and my foot in my mouth, I bid you all a fond adieu and see you next time. Thank you.